Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome to the Dentist Money Show. This is where we help dentists make smart financial decisions. I'm your host, Ryan Isaac, and here with a newish friend, new from the summer of 2025, Dr. Logan Ganoe. Logan, what's up, man? Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
Yeah. So this is actually a really timely podcast for a few reasons, in my opinion. I'm going to let you do an intro to yourself and who you are and what is life and work like for you. But I'm just going to give a little bit of an intro here. We met at our 2025 Park City Summit up in Park City, obviously. We were doing a breakout session one of the days, and we just had a chance to sit down and talk about life and practice and, where everything goes and what everyone's working on. There's a small room. There's half a dozen people in there in this little kind of last minute little breakout session we had. And frankly, we just got to hear a really important story of yours, your life story, your journey so far in dentistry and life. And when we left there, and there was a few of us in the room from our team, we just left thinking like, well, number one, that's a really cool dude. First of all, that's a really just a great dude. But also his story, I think is important to share for a few reasons. So I've done this job for almost 18 years now, only with dentists, and nobody escapes a life where stuff happens. Nobody. Just today, I was on the phone with clients in their 90s, approaching their 90s, running out of some of their money in some buckets, facing significant, scary, very sad health challenges. I was on the phone with another client in the mid-career, same thing, mental health challenges with the doctor, struggling to go to work and provide, financial challenges, raising adult kids, going to college. All of us just deal with something at some point, probably multiple times. And so we just kind of wanted to have someone come share their story, someone who's dealt with stuff, dealing with stuff. And, you're also a really cool dude. So that was
thank you.
Yeah, that was my take. That was my experience of being there. But let's, Logan, who's Logan? Who are you? How'd you begin in the dental school? Let's just start with your journey into dentistry. And then let's just kind of jump into some of your story. And my hope here, let me tie this up. The hope is that people will just find something relatable in your story. If this helps one person go, hey, okay, I can keep pushing, I can keep doing this, I can keep going, then we've done our job, and that's been helpful to somebody. So let's just give it to you for a second, man. Hot mic. Where did you begin in your dental journey? How'd you get into dentistry? Why did you do this in the first place?
That's a phenomenal question, and something I think every dentist gets asked every day by patients when they're like, why do you want to work in someone's mouth every single day?
Why'd you do this?
Why would you torture yourself like that? I just had a patient yesterday, just kind of dead face look me in the eye and say, I could never do this. I don't know what's wrong with you. And you're like, yeah, I know. Well, let's start there. So I absolutely love this show. I've been a long-time listener, thrilled to be on. I had a fantastic time at the summit. That was my first time. Full disclosure, there's no endorsement here. They're not paying me to go to the summit. But no, it was so cool. I met so many cool people. And to be honest, I kind of used it a little bit, in my own advantage. I was like, I have this story to tell, and I need people's thoughts, insights. And so I kind of went there with that mentality, but I came with so much more. And just a quick story from the summit. So we had a phenomenal speaker, and I don't know how you say her full last name, but it was Dr. Aditi. And she talked about the 5 resets and gave this phenomenal lecture, and just world-renowned doctor and just amazing person. And at the end, she, went off to go sign books and hand them out to everybody, which was such a cool gesture. So I get in line, of course, because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get my copy and meet her. And I'm talking to the people around me in line and stuff. And then all of a sudden it's my turn, and I'm at the front of the line, and right next to her is Robbie. He's helping her out. And I've never met Robbie before.
He was excited. Yeah.
And I'm a long time 2 Cents fan and everything. So I'm like, you're Robbie. And I didn't recognize it until it was over. But the whole time I just spent talking to Robbie and trying to talk to him. Did you guys film record a new session today? And he's like, yeah, we did. And she was asking if they have a podcast. I was like, oh, you've never heard his podcast? I was all about it. So I kind of felt bad that I got to the front and like I was more paying attention to Robbie, but yeah, the
Yeah,
summit
no.
was an awesome time.
Hey, to be fair, everyone's starstruck by Robbie, and rightfully so. I am too, actually, when I talk to him. So it's
But
great.
yeah, so to your question, how did I get into dental? It's kind of, a long story, but when I went to undergrad, I kind of knew I wanted to do something medical, dental, and wasn't really sure. And for a long time, I thought anesthesiology was going to be my path. And so I shadowed a couple anesthesiologists. I started my undergrad at San Diego State, and I shadowed an anesthesiologist out there in San Diego. And then I'm from Colorado, and I shadowed one back home. And independently and separate from me saying anything, they both said a very similar thing, which was if I could do it all over again, I would do dentistry, which kind of, struck me. And you hear
That's
that from two
interesting.
different docs. And I was like, and they talked about, work-life balance, how it's really hard to kill somebody, not impossible, but really hard to.
As a dentist,
And
you mean?
yeah, as a dentist,
Let's clarify. Not
Let's clarify,
generally
yeah.
speaking. We're
Not
just saying,
generally
as a
speaking, yeah.
dentist, doing your job properly, it's
Yeah.
hard to kill somebody.
Malpractice is less stress. They, in their outside opinion, stress is less and all that stuff. You get to be a practice owner, and they saw a lot of benefits in that, because I think our colleagues in medicine have seen the consolidation of that, and most of them, are W-2 employees, and they wish they owned their practice or had a say in things. My mother was a dental hygienist, so I had easy access to that. I went and shadowed a couple of dentists, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I think I could do this. You get to work with your hands every day. Seemed pretty, 8 to 4, dry cut. Most of the docs I was meeting and shadowing, 4 days a week. I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds right up my alley. So, finished undergrad, and I actually, when I applied to dental school the first time, it's very half-heartedly. I was kind of in my senior year, and just so many different things going on. And, I was young and stupid, let's be honest. I was just like, do I really want to do more school? None of my friends were on that course, and I grew up kind of in that surfer, skater, snowboarder mentality.
I was just
So, yeah.
remembering. Yeah, didn't we connect on a bunch of like surf, skate, punk rock stuff from?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And so like that, that's my shameful background. And I just had no friends doing anything of that nature. So it's like, what am I doing? Like, do I want to go to school more? Like everyone else is getting a job, working. I was like, the school thing, it's been a long road. So I think I only applied to like 3 programs, and one of them like had these extra requirements of like paperwork and essays you had to fill out. And I was like, that's too much. I'm not going to do it. So I really only applied to 2 and got one interview at the University of Colorado, which is, where I'm from, and went to the interview. And I don't honestly remember that interview, but must not have been anything too impressive, because I didn't get accepted that year. And I had a cousin.
Sorry, what year is this? When is this all happening, by the way? I'm just curious.
This is 2010. Yeah.
2010. Okay, so just if I'm trying to think of some context. We had started our business.
Well, that's when I graduated. Yeah. So I was like 20, probably 09 was when I was doing this. Yeah.
And we're in the housing crisis, the
08,
entire
09,
economic bubble had just burst. Things were still so shaky. Just before we move on, do you remember much of that? Do you remember what it felt like to be graduating in your lifetime? My lifetime was the biggest, economic market crisis. Do you remember anything about that? Just curious if that, struck you as like, what am I doing? And is there going to be an economy, and will I have jobs? Or do you remember anything?
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, I was an undergrad during that time. But so like I said, I started my undergraduate degree at San Diego State.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of my sophomore year, I don't really remember why, but I always had it in my head that I was going to go to maybe 2 different schools. So I just kind of applied to a couple of different universities. And as much as I love San Diego State, it was kind of weird being in the California State universities. Like a lot of our professors kind of always talk down about it. They're like, oh, if you want to do medicine or this or that, you got to be in the UC program, which is University of California.
Okay.
And, I was young and impressionable, and later learned that it doesn't matter at all. You can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, maybe I do need to be in this. So I applied to UC Santa Barbara, UCLA, applied to the University of Colorado Boulder.
Okay.
I was out of state at San Diego State and getting help from my parents. My dad had he was an entrepreneur, had his own mattress business, and that went under in the 08, 09 time frame.
Right.
So schooling was going to become on my own. And just randomly through that process of applying, I actually got a scholarship to CU, so the University of Colorado Boulder. So it wasn't the only reason, but that was one thing that kind of forced me to go there.
Okay.
And then fast forward, I move into a house and there's two other guys that lived in there with me. And then one guy that we called him our resident, cause he was always on our couch. But
Yeah.
every single one of us had a family member, mainly our dads, that were laid off, lost their job, business went under.
Really?
And
Okay.
they were like, and like you would see it on the news and all that. And it's like, well, this is real life. So we were seeing it kind of all happen.
Close to home stuff. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So
Okay.
that's kind of what I remember and take away from them. And the biggest thing was, during that time too, still seeing some dentists, and, business was same as ever. It seemed like,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
people still needed, their health needs met.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, obviously it's a career and a business that maintains itself through a lot of world and economic cycles. Interesting that you noticed that early on. Did you have any dental like friends or family? Do you remember your dentist as a kid yourself, or was it just these conversations with a couple of physicians that were like, you should be a dentist?
Yeah, no. So like I mentioned and probably just glossed over too quickly, but my mother was a dental hygienist. So I grew
Okay.
up like
Yeah, maybe I didn't catch
she
that.
would have
Oh,
to go
okay.
set up her operatory before taking
Oh
us to
yeah.
school. So I would fall asleep in one of the dental chairs because like we'd have to go in super early so she could set up and be ready for when patients showed up. We
Cool.
would all
Okay.
sleep in dental chairs until she was ready to take us over to school, drop us off, and then
Got it.
she'd go work. And then
Okay.
the receptionist, she would pick us up from school, and we'd go back to the dental office until my mom was done, and we just hung out in the back office. And as
Okay.
operations ran like normal, and there's
So you have
three kids
fond
in the back
memories of
office.
the sights and smells and
The dental
sounds of a
office
dental
smell,
practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's truly home.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you get into school. What was that like? You said you were kind of like not really you were half-heartedly doing, not really expecting to do it. What was that like
Yeah,
when you finally kind of got in and chose the path? Were you
yeah. So
in, or were you just like, I don't know, we'll just see where this thing takes me?
well, yeah. So I had some time off in between, so I didn't get in that time frame,
Mhm.
and I went and did a master's program, and excelled in that. And then I went and lived in Central America for a year. There's a program through USC called Somos Hermanos that took future health professionals down to Guatemala, and you worked in health clinics and learned Spanish. And that was when I was applying. So like I came back and like I had all these crazy stories. Like I remember my first interview, I literally flew from Guatemala, and like a night prior was sleeping in a volcano because we had like climbed into it and camped and stuff. It was inactive, of course, because like the inactive ones have
Yeah,
lakes.
yeah.
But like I just
Yeah.
had so much more to add to my resume and stuff. So and I was actually really kind of, the fire was relit again. Like I was ready to go to dental school and I was excited
Mm,
about it. And yeah, so then I entered dental school loving it and ready to do it, and thought I'd do, I was kind of always interested in specializing, namely oral
mm,
surgery.
mhm.
And spoiler alert, that's where I ended up at.
Yeah, yeah.
But after my first year, we took our boards, I passed that, and those had just become like pass fail. And I'm like, I had that kind of same wall that I hit, my final year of undergrad, where I was like, do I really want to do another 4 to 6 years of residency? I was like, I still got 3 years left of dental school, and this is a lot of work
Yes.
and all that. So I kind of talked myself back into doing general dentistry.
Mhm.
And then it's one of those, I think every profession's tough, right? Like, how do you know you love doing something until you do it day in and day out? And maybe the advantage that other professions have is that you might not commit for 10 years of your life,
Just
learning
getting
that,
ready for
yeah,
it.
just getting
Yeah.
ready for it and wrapping
Mhm.
up debt. Whereas in
Yep.
dentistry, like you might not find that out till a couple of years out, and you have a whole bunch of debt and a whole
You're
bunch of
in.
lost time.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, my fourth year of dental school, I just had that realization that I did not enjoy general dentistry. Not talking bad about it by any means. I love
Yeah,
every
yeah.
general
Calm down,
dentist,
GPs.
and
We love you. It's fine.
and
We're
I'm
not
so
just kidding.
glad that everyone does their part. But it just, I wasn't, being fulfilled by that. Like I was like,
Yeah.
kind of, what am I doing? Like, how can I do this the rest of my life? And that's a hard time to realize that when you're about to, a couple months away from finishing, and
Yep.
I had like about $250,000 of debt when I finished dental school, which is,
Okay.
a lot, but like crazily, that's on the low end these
I
days.
was
Like
just
it's
gonna say,
wild.
man, that was, shortly after our business had started. And I remember some of our first clients having 200 grand in student loans, 180 grand, thinking that's the most insane amount of student. I can't even fathom you have 180,000 or $200,000 of student loan debt. Fast forward to today, 500 or 600 grand, you don't even really blink an eye. We meet couples who both went to dental school and they're $1 million in student loan debt. And it's like, All right. Yeah. Seemed like a lot of the time.
And we can do a
Higher
quick
rates
plug.
though, but then
Luckily with you guys, there's a way out, right?
there's a way out.
No,
Yeah.
but yeah, so, I was trying to decide what to do. And like I said, I started school thinking oral surgery. I was lucky because I spoke Spanish, I got all the Spanish speaking patients and I was so
Okay.
far ahead in all my requirements that I didn't
Oh,
really need to be in clinic anymore. So I took a
got it.
couple weeks and went down to
Hmm.
LSU New Orleans for an
Oh, yeah.
externship. And they have a phenomenal oral surgery program. I had a buddy that was
Go
actually from my
Tigers.
master's program that was,
Yeah.
in the oral surgery program. And
Mm.
so I went down there and got to shadow and just do and see so many cool things. And it kind of, again, relit that fire. I'm like, yes,
Mm.
like, so they had a gentleman who had avulsed his ear. So meaning like ear ripped off, right? From a
Whoa.
motor
Okay.
vehicle accident. The docs there, and this is way crazier than anything I do these days, but the docs there, phenomenal surgeons. They harvested rib cartilage,
Wow.
shaved it to look like an ear, implanted it in his forearm so that it would vascularize and the tissue would grow around it. And once the blood vessels had vascularized to it, they took that with the blood vessels, put it back on his face, and anastomosed the vessels into his neck so it had blood supply. So it looked like he had an ear. And they
What?
did that. They did that final surgery when I was there, and I'm like, and we're a dentist. I was like, sold. Like
You're
you
like,
didn't have
I'm
to
in
convince
this.
me anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And needless to say, I don't do those type of surgeries as an oral surgeon. But there's OMS out there that do those crazy surgeons. They're all
Yeah.
microvascular fellowship trained, and then
Wow.
I can't tell you what the outcome was long term, but I saw that and I was like, yes, okay, I'm
You
not
knew it was
doing
for you.
dentistry anymore. So I was like, let's do this. And,
Mm.
like, again, full disclosure, most of my days these days are dental alveolar surgery and I love it, but it was just something that I think I needed to relight that candle.
Yeah,
And
that's cool,
so,
man.
it was too late to apply to oral surgery residency though, because they go through the match that happens in like January. This was like
Oh,
March, April.
okay.
And so I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Is like, do I just go work as a, GP for a year and then, apply and I talked to the oral surgery head at my school and he's like, hey, if you want to be taken serious, you need to do what's called a non-categorical year. And essentially it's an intern year that doesn't count for anything. But
Okay.
the oral surgery programs, they're so busy, they need all hands on deck, right? So a lot of them
Mm.
have spots where they can hire interns, but you're not actually in the program. So you don't advance through it. You just do a year. And during that year, a lot of people apply and you can get into that program that you're at somewhere else, who knows? But
Mm.
you're getting exposure to all that stuff. And he's like, hey, this is what's going to show everyone you're the most serious because you're putting in the time, you're learning it. It's a very intense, labor
Mhm.
intense, time intense year, but
Mm.
everyone's going to know you're serious if you do it. Well,
Mm.
even those spots were pretty much filled up because, again, I was pretty late to it, and everyone that did not match chose to already apply to those. So I was looking, and I found a GPR spot which is general practice residency in Hawaii, and I was like, perfect, sold. I'll go surf for a year, and this will be great. Um, and so I applied to that. I got offered the position. And then a couple weeks later, I found out that UPenn in Philadelphia had a non-categorical spot open up because someone dropped out. So my buddy was like, "Oh, you gotta do that," and so I applied to it, and it went out there and interview and got accepted. So now I had to make this decision: what do I do? And
Gosh, yeah.
I just remember, like, one, the doc that was kind of my mentor telling me what to do. He really put that emphasis on the non-cat year, but the GPR had a requirement for that year. You had to make 2 dentures, which is such a low threshold
Okay.
for anything. And so you might not respect this, but I'm sure the audience is rolling their
Yeah,
eyes right now. I
okay.
hate removable prosths so much. I could not fathom making 2 dentures. And I was like, I could go live this cush life in Hawaii. I don't want to call it cush. GPRs
Yeah,
are very
yeah,
labor
yeah.
intensive, all this. But like in my mind, I could go surf every day in Hawaii, probably work less hours. I knew it was better pay because I saw the pay at both and have all those things. Or I could go be, an indentured servant to the hospital for a year.
Yeah.
And I chose that because I just knew it was what's right, but I didn't want to make
Uh-huh.
dentures. And so I applied
Yeah.
during that time and got accepted to Thomas Jefferson, which is another university in Philadelphia. And I did my residency there. Very grateful for all the attendings and docs
Oh,
there and
cool.
saw a lot of cool surgeries, was a part of a lot of cool surgeries. Yeah, and that's how I kind of
Wow.
became an oral surgeon.
So when you get through this program, you're graduating, you're getting into your field, Can you recall what it felt like thinking ahead to your career at the beginning right there? How did you envision what would happen from that point? What did you think was going to go on after that? Where would you go from there?
You're saying when I got into residency?
Yeah, uh-huh. And you're kind of thinking about like, all right, after this, my career is going to be dot dot dot. What did you think about that at the time?
Yeah. So, man, it's I guess a little depressing because again, I did a non-cat year. So I did a whole year of just being the intern, which is the
Mhm.
worst job in the hospital. Like
Okay, yeah.
any medical professional listening and they hear the word intern, that's the job nobody wants.
Mm.
Um, and so you're just kind of, it's different, right? Like dental school, like you're talked up and, oh yeah, you're going to have this great career. You're going to be, and like in residency, you're just a little bit kind of humbled, right? Like their whole
Okay.
job's to beat you down, to make you
Mm.
realize you don't know anything and you're
Mm.
worthless, until
Mhm.
you learn it all.
Yeah.
And so I was actually kind of struggling. Like I got in and I was like thinking, I'm like, is this the right decision? Like, I mean, I've matched in this most competitive specialty and like, so many people would love to be here, but like, am I doing the right thing? And
Mm.
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast right
Yeah.
there, but chasing achievement versus chasing success, right?
Mm. Mm.
And I think a lot of times the world that we live in, right or wrong, kind of pushes these things. And like, you're like, okay, you go, this is what success is. But really, they're just talking about achievement, right? They're talking about
Yeah.
titles,
Uh-huh.
a
Yep.
dollar amount, a boat in your,
Milestones.
yeah,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And,
Quantifiable
and,
things.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and all those things are fine and great.
Totally. They have their
But
place. Yeah.
but success is not limited, right? Anyone can be successful. No matter how much money's in your bank account, no matter what your job title is, what you do, success is a very like internal thing, I feel like.
Mhm.
And there's plenty
Yeah.
of it, right? It's not limited, right?
Mhm.
Like the number of boats on this planet, that is a limited number of things. There are only so many people that can own a boat. But success, everybody can have success.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things that's, I feel like, different. And I was having that internal struggle. But I guess I just knew, because just from what you're told and heard, you're just like, okay, you're just going to get to that end of the tunnel and everything's going to be okay. Like you're going to start making lots of money, and oral surgeons have boats and big houses. I remember, so my mom, again, was a dental hygienist, and their office always got invited to like a office party with the oral surgery group every year.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
would throw this big extravagant event, and it was obvious that they were doing well. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just kind of would think, okay, there's a silver lining here. You just got to hang on and just
Mm.
wait, and you'll get there.
Mm. Did you have an idea where you would want to go establish a career and start practicing, or how did you what was the transition from this residency to actually getting into things?
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to go back west. Like I grew up on, kind of Mountain West, Pacific Ocean, all that. And so I knew I wanted to go back west, and I really liked the small town feel. And one of the things, like, having lived in Guatemala and served the community down there, part of that, I initially left the country saying, hey, oh, whenever I, get into dental school or whenever, like, I'm always going to go back abroad and do these mission trips and stuff like that. And those things are really great, and I'm glad people do them and they're important. But I think I also came to kind of a realization that there's a lot of places in the US that don't have great access
Right
to
here in your
care.
backyard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, there's something to be said for that, because there's plenty of great people here that just, they have to drive 2 hours or 4 hours to go see a doctor. Um, and even then, maybe that doctor doesn't do full scope or offer these things. And so I was kind of really intrigued into that. And, I love the mountains and love nature and being outside. So I love Colorado, but it just become a little too popular. Like I grew up in the Denver metro area, and anytime I'd go back is just, you're sitting in traffic on I-25, and
Place is
took forever
sprawling.
to get in. Yeah. And it's beautiful, and for good reason. That's why it's
Totally.
so busy.
Yep.
Um, but I was like, I just don't know that I can go back there. So started looking all over, and I ended up finding a practice in Montana that was looking for an associate, and it just spoke to me. I'll be honest, the contract wasn't anything impressive. It wasn't the highest paying contract. It wasn't
Mm.
the biggest percentage of collections. It didn't have all the bells and whistles that some other contracts I'd seen offered. All my co-residents, they were staying East Coast, and there's a lot of different things they were being offered and stuff like that. But I just kind of knew, I was like, yeah, I think this is where I need to be.
Mm.
I remember when I told she was my girlfriend at the time, and I remember saying, hey, like, this is where I want to move to, and I want you to go with me. And her response was, isn't Montana a flyover state? I was like,
Yeah.
exactly. I was like,
It's
that's
like
why I want to
Montana.
go
Eh?
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Like, 'cause
Yeah.
nobody else wants to, yeah. This was well, I don't know. This was like 2020. So like, I think it was I don't know if it was
Mm,
Yellowstone yet. Was Yellowstone out yet? I watched it late. So
maybe not.
I don't know if
I
Montana
did
had caught
too.
all the fad that it
Yeah.
does now these days.
Wasn't cool yet.
Yeah. So I found a practice there, and I was really pumped and excited about it. And that kind of gets into the next part of our story. So,
Yeah.
you know, I
Real fast before you make that transition, that next part of your story. Looking back now, do you have any advice? Like, if someone's in that position right now, coming out of a residency, looking for their first job, any advice on what you would give someone in your position back then on how to choose where to go? Like you said, it's a place maybe not a lot of people wanted to go. It wasn't the most special, unique contract. Wasn't the biggest offer. Any advice that you would give to someone making that call? Because there's so many factors. It's a very nuanced decision.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a couple of things. Like, man, it's just, I know it sounds so cliche, but like, follow your gut and your heart. Cause, you know, you'll see as this story unfolds, I've never regretted that decision. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people could pick apart that story and find reasons to regret it.
Yeah.
But I would say because it's just what felt right to me, I
Yeah.
don't regret it by any
Cool.
means. And then I guess I mean, you know, for any, you know, somebody finished a dental school or residency, I know there's a lot of resources out there. Actually, you know, you guys just had a podcast with, I think it was Dr. Tony Shitstans, and he's,
Yeah. Chick Tans.
yeah,
Yeah.
the educated associate. And it sounds like he's doing some real cool stuff, kind of helping,
Yeah.
you know, young docs kind of realize all their options. And, you know, you do have value coming out, even though you know, you've only learned the basics, but,
Mm-hmm.
you know, make sure that you guys are, you know, putting in the due diligence and kind of looking through those things. But I would say at the end of the day, it's got to feel right in your gut. Like
So
if something
your
just
gut.
isn't sitting
Yeah.
right, like, I don't know, I would question that big time.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, maybe the biggest offer doesn't feel the best, or the shiniest place doesn't feel the best. Yeah, I like
Well,
that. Kind of check your gut with that.
yeah, and I mean, I hope part of the story that we're about to tell kind of alludes to all this, but you know, I think money is a great tool that can bring you lots of
Mm-hmm.
happiness, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not the only thing. And
Yeah.
I think when you sit there and you argue over percentage points and you're like, in the long term, what does that mean? Does
Yeah.
that move the needle? You know, like, am I
Right.
going to not take this opportunity because we're arguing between 32% and 33% collections? Like,
Right.
does that move the needle enough for you to be truly happy and at a place where maybe you're going to fit really well and mesh with the staff
Mm-hmm.
well and you love the area? Like,
Mm.
so I wouldn't let the number be the end all, if that makes
Yeah, good
sense.
call. Yeah, I'm a from a career standpoint, I'm a big believer in geography and location. I mean, I think when you're younger in a career, a lot of us, you go where the job is and you do what you have to do to get started. But over time, I do think the places we live in, they make a big difference in our overall well-being and how satisfied we are with everything. Like you said, money's not all of it. That's good. Okay, I know. Yeah, now this is where the story starts getting as if, sleeping in a volcano the night before it wasn't interesting enough or unique enough. Yeah, where does it turn from here?
Yeah. So I took the job in Montana and convinced my girlfriend at the time to move out with me. And this is, you know, the summer of 2021. So I had finished residency during the COVID era and uh,
Yeah.
was so thrilled to get there. And man, I just remember like we flew out there and like we took like 2 weeks off from ending residency and starting the job, and we got to take this cool trip to Hawaii. And like we first get to Montana just to drop off all our stuff. It's blue skies, beautiful, everything I thought it would be. We go to Hawaii for like a week and just get to see that, and it was just like the most amazing time. And I'm like, okay, we finally made it. I just felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. You know, all that, everything I had planned for and worked for. This was when I started to get to, you know, reap the rewards.
Yeah. You're like, finally.
Finally, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's, you know, easy sailing, smooth sailing from here. Nothing can stop us
Yeah.
now, right?
Wait, what age were you at this point? Do you remember? Like, what age is
Yeah,
this?
so I was 33.
Okay, yeah. You're like at 33. I'm past all the hard stuff. Nothing but yeah, it's all downhill. Yeah, it's all
Yeah, I was like,
coasting from
yeah,
here.
it's easy
It's
now.
chill. Yeah.
And yeah, so we started work in Montana in July of 2021. And I don't remember exactly. It was the third or fourth week I was there. I just remember one of the partner docs stepped into my office. There was two other docs in the office there. and sits down, and I think, oh, he's just gonna like check in, see, because he asks like, how are things going and all that. And once we get kind of through the small talk, he tells me that they got an offer from a private equity group and that nothing was signed yet, but they were pretty certain they wanted to move forward and see. And he was kind of seeing how I felt. And I think looking back, he probably wanted to know, like, am I going to jump ship? Because that's probably going to hurt the deal. But I wasn't really that smart to think that far ahead. I
To
thought
hold it
he was,
over him as leverage. Yeah.
yeah, like I thought he was just truly kind of asking, like, what my thoughts were and stuff. I mean, and internally I was screaming no. I guess actually, yeah, I'll say like I'm anti DSO.
Sure. Yeah. It's okay.
Hot take. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some people that won't like that answer.
Yeah. I don't think it's that hot anymore, but
Yeah,
it can be.
it's just I did not want that to happen. I entered
Yeah.
the field for private practice. I believe that private practitioners can do it better, with more
Agree.
patient centric,
Yeah.
patient focused, deliver
Especially over
better
time.
care, cheaper care. I think all those things in the long run are
Yeah.
true. But for some reason, I didn't say that. Like I was
Mhm.
kind of quiet as your typical associate, which is like, again, like that's why I said, like, if you're going through those contracts, you got to kind of speak up for yourself. But I
Mhm.
was like, well, if that's what you guys feel is best. And at the end of the day, like I don't fault them. That's their decision.
Mhm.
They've created this, awesome company. And if they want to monetize it and that's what makes sense to them, like there's no fault there for sure.
Yeah.
But I was just really hoping in my head, like it would fall through. And like the second I got home that night, like I was pulling up my contract again, looking at my non-compete and seeing like, does this, what violates this contract and all this, like,
Mm.
can it do? But I'd been in Montana like, 3-4 weeks. Like, was I going to go really just do a scratch startup by myself, like barely knowing how to be in private practice, not having
Yeah.
anybody's backing, and in a town that I didn't know that we would love, like we had been there
Right.
a month. Um,
Yeah.
and so there was all these kind of questions about like what to do and where we go. And there's a lot of turmoil for a while. And I started kind of interviewing again, looking at other places, but Montana still felt really special to us. Like we really loved where we were. We loved our lifestyle. And what I ended up doing was eventually just kind of negotiating a contract with the DSO.
Mm.
And, my thought process kind of turned to, well, the grass isn't always greener. Right. And so I was like, maybe I should just stick on and see. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to negotiate something that has no non-compete. So that way, if I ever don't like it, I can just bounce. And the negotiation process was a nightmare. It was very tough with this DSO, really hard to get in contact. Kind of the CEO at the time was handling everything because it was kind of still in its infancy. And
Mm.
he was just overstretched. Like I get that. Like he didn't have enough time
Yeah.
to worry about an
Totally.
associate contract. But I think that burned them in the long run because if you don't care about your doctors, like that
Mhm.
shows, and then that I think trickles down. And I was like, I'm just not going to give up until they say no non-compete because I hold all the cards here, right? If I leave. And eventually what had happened was like we got to the language and like we kept changing it. It's very clear. Like they were telling me there's no way they can do no non-compete. So it's going to have to be something. And like we were negotiating back and forth. And then eventually in the contract, they one time forgot to write the distance. So instead of saying like, oh, you can't practice within a 7-mile radius, right?
Yeah.
I just said you can't practice within a 2 of the building. And then like, that's all it said. And in where I trained in Philadelphia, in the city, it's very, very common to have a blocks, right? Like you don't
Mhm.
do miles. You say, hey, you can't practice within 8 city
Yeah.
blocks,
Yeah.
right? Or that radius.
Yeah.
And, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding of the law is ambiguity in a contract goes to the person that didn't write it, being myself. So I was like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my out right here. I was like, they didn't put it in there. So I was like, I thought it meant 2 blocks, I'm golden. So I
Yeah.
signed that contract right away. Yeah, which was maybe not the smartest thing, but stayed on for a little bit. And yeah, let's see, where do we want to take the story next? So stayed there for quite a while. I was in Montana for a total of 3 years. But
Okay.
in 2023, January, I was diagnosed on my wife's birthday with testicular cancer.
Okay. Pause. What month of beginning of
January
23?
January 3rd, 2023.
January 3rd,
Yeah. I mean,
2023.
we can make it even spicier. Um, a week earlier, I finally got the balls to propose to my wife. Can I say that on this podcast? I don't
Hell
know.
yeah, we can. Let's go. We're leaving it in
Yeah.
there. Wait,
So
just a week. Okay, so let me actually back up a little bit. You ended up being an associate in this situation. They sold, I take it. They ended up selling it.
they ended up
The
selling it, and then
transition to the
mhm.
new owner. I think it's just we don't have to dwell there or stay there, but that's an important thing of your story, I think, because huge scenario. I mean, it's happening all over the country, and the associates who are in practices thinking they might take over for the owners one day are becoming associates for corporate-owned dental practices, which is probably not in the plan. So we don't have to stay there, but that an important note, I think, to just say, you made it a few more years. You got some experience. I think you'd probably just say you got some experience. You speak fondly of it, of your time there. It was what it was, and it got you to where you were going. So you're 3 years in. Are you ending your work contract at that time, or were you like on a year to year kind of thing
Yeah, I was on
when this was
a
happening?
year-to-year contract, that
Okay.
just kinda renewed annually every year, and I think I had to give, 90 days notice
Okay.
was what the contract held in it, so I could quit at any time with 90 days notice. If I didn't give 90 days notice, then there was, like I was getting obviously like a production bonus, right? So
Okay.
that wouldn't be paid
That
out for
wouldn't be
that
there.
time, and there might have been some other penalty, and all that.
What were you thinking was the next move before we get back to the spoiler alert,
Yeah.
where life really turned? What were you thinking was going to be the next career move from there?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, so I had negotiated my contract to where, in my mind, so in Montana, non-competes, I'm told, aren't enforceable. It's not like
Okay.
California where it's illegal.
Yeah.
You can't put them in a contract. You can put
Yeah.
them in there, but they're not enforceable.
Yeah, you can't
That's
enforce them.
one. Two, my non-compete had ambiguity in it. So I was like, that's two. So I was like, this is an easy no-brainer. When I'm ready, I'm just going to peel off and start my own practice in
Mhm.
Montana where I was
Okay.
practicing.
So that was the plan. And
Yeah.
end of 2022, December of 2022, you propose. I assume she said
December
yes.
26th, she said
December
yes.
20th, she says yes. January 3rd, her birthday. You guys are in your early 30s, same age, both of you?
She's luckily a lot younger than me. Yeah.
Okay.
She was
So
still in her 20s. Yeah.
she's in her 20s, you're in
She's just
your
8
early
years younger than me,
30s,
yeah.
and you find out you have cancer.
I find out I have cancer, and,
How did you find that out? How was the news delivered?
yeah, so it was kind of a crazy week. So, I was on call from Christmas to New Year's, and I was just getting crushed. Like, building where I was in Montana has 2 level 1 trauma centers, and there was just a lot of trauma coming in. And I remember I
Okay.
was just operating all night one night, on two separate patients, but then I just started having, like, pain in my groin
Uh,
area, and
uh,
I convinced myself, I was just like, I must have been leaning on the table somehow, like,
sure.
one of the
Yeah. Long
patients was a little bit
surgeries,
bigger. Yeah, I'm
long
like, I've just
days. Yeah.
positioned myself weird, and any male knows you can sometimes, kick yourself there,
It can
and so you're
hurt.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, I must have just, like, been leaning wrong and yeah, whatever.
Mm.
Well, 24 hours goes by, that hasn't really resolved. 48 hours goes by, hasn't resolved. Now we're at like day 3, day 4, and I'm like, this is weird. Like, why do I have pain? Which is actually a blessing because most of the time testicular cancers are not painful. Um,
Really?
yeah, so that's
Okay.
not a common symptom.
Ooh.
And even like when I went in with that to see the urology team, they're like, don't worry, it's not cancer. Cancers aren't painful. Like this is probably, it's something different. Like, and that's what they
Yeah.
said before we got the
Yeah.
ultrasound. They got the ultrasound. I did something you're not supposed to, but then I went into the hospital and checked my own chart, saw that it said concern for malignancy. I'm like, great. Testicular cancer, when they see a mass on the testicles, because it's so predictable on where it goes to next, they don't do biopsies because if you do a biopsy, then it can spread in an unpredictable fashion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's pretty much just assumed cancer until they get the results, which is they do an
Okay.
orchiectomy, they remove one of your boys, and
Huh.
they send it to the pathologist. And
Whoa.
sure
And this
enough,
is
it
all
came
happening
back
in
that
January 23. This is all
it's all
happening
it's
within that
all
month.
all happening in January that month. I remember, yeah, when my wife still asks, because when I was in pre-op sitting there and they've started the IV and I'm getting ready to go back, the surgeon comes and talks to me and is asking about how much time I took off. And I was like, well, so far I have this week off. I'm going to work Friday. This was like on a Monday. I had surgery on a Monday. He's like, you might want like 3 to 4 weeks off. And I had taken, 4 days.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I had the surgery. Luckily, the surgery was uneventful. Everything went well, but the pathology did come back as a cancer. Luckily, it was one of the non-aggressive types with a pure seminoma. For our listeners, they probably know that name. So that was fortunate. But going through all that, I never really worried about dying because I've been through enough schooling that I know the different types of cancers. And not
Okay.
that anybody wants any type of cancer, but as a male, probably testicular cancer is probably one of the best ones to get. I know that sounds
Okay.
weird to say, but like it just has such a high survival rate, right?
Okay.
Um, like you don't want to get any cancer. Let's just leave it there. But
Yeah.
it
Uh-huh.
has the best survival rate. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna beat this thing. Everybody beats this thing. Um, but what really worried me is like I'd put so much of my life off, like, and I had done that unconsciously the entire
What do you mean
time.
by
But
that? What do you mean by that?
so what I mean by that is, I it made me reflect, and I kind of looked back and, what's like I said, I wasn't worried about dying, but I was like, what am I worried about? Like, what would make this the worst
Oh.
thing ever? And to me, that was, what if I can't become a father?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I get a little
It's okay.
emotional
Yeah,
talking about it.
you should.
But yeah, I had to think about it. And that, I guess, doesn't always require this path. But to me, becoming a father meaning, being married to
Mm,
the one that you love, right?
mm.
And and I had realized I'd put all those things off because I was pursuing a career and I was like, well, I can't get married until I'm financially stable. And
Oh, sure.
I was like, and then you go from, you're not rich as undergrad. I wasn't rich in grad school. I wasn't rich when I was a surf bum in Central America. I wasn't rich when I was in dental school. I wasn't rich as a resident. And not even rich, but like negative net worth, scraping paycheck to paycheck.
Yep. Yep.
And you didn't walk by a dime on the street. You saw that, you picked it up.
Yep. Yep.
And so I'd put so many things off because I was like, I just wasn't there in my life yet to be ready for that. And it was a big realization, like, what if you don't get to that point? Like, no, like, and you kind of realize, like, who promised you tomorrow? And the answer is no one.
Yeah.
And that was tough. And I was like, I really want to be a dad. And I was like, but I had to get all this stuff ready to be, married. And we weren't even married yet, right? We had been
Mm,
engaged a week. And I'm like,
mhm.
we're not married yet. Like everyone says, be married for a couple years, enjoy that before having kids. I was like, and I had the talk with my wife, and luckily that she's my rock. She's awesome, understands me, and like we were just of the same, feather. And like she just understood. She's like, yeah, no, like we want to be parents. And, she had been on an oral contraceptive, like, since she was, like, 13, right? And she was
Okay.
still on one, and we're like, "Well,
Wow.
we're not gonna get pregnant with that, so let's stop that right away, and
Mm.
let's try to, like, go towards this journey of starting a family, because that's what I would regret most. If I leave
Okay.
this world early, I would regret never having been a dad."
Mm.
Yeah. And, so we started that journey, and I'm sure you're going to have many listeners, because the more I've told the story and I've listened to other people that have had the same issues, fertility is not something to be taken for granted.
Yep. Yeah.
I've met so many people that have been on long 2, 3, 5 year struggles to have
Right.
kids.
Yep.
And so my wife, she got off her birth control, and we were just like, okay, we'll just wait for kind of your cycle to get regular and, you know, do it all natural. At this time, I was in the point of cancer where you have to go back every couple of months for a scan and repeat, and they're
Okay.
just making sure there's no recurrence and all that stuff. And it was every 4 months, and you have to drink this really nasty, like chalky contrast dye. And they don't do that anymore, luckily. But I was drinking that stuff and getting the scans, and
And real
uh,
fast, you're still an associate. Still haven't
still
left. You're still
still an
yeah.
associate, still in
Okay.
Montana,
Still
because yeah,
Montana.
because now we're like, well, let's kind of go down this. I had decent health insurance through the DSO. I
Mm.
guess maybe that's a good thing.
Sure.
Um, I was very lucky, and we'll talk about this, I think, at the end, but because of my financial attitudes and being respectful to money early on in my career, like it wasn't crippling us. So we were very fortunate for that. So we're
Mhm.
like, let's stay here. Let's see what happens, and let's try to start a family. Well, let's kind of go to this point next, that the DSO, every month we would get a report that lagged maybe by 2 months or just a month, I can't remember, of our metrics, right? They called them KPIs and
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff. And if your numbers were green, that was a good thing. If your numbers were red, that was a bad thing.
Okay.
And, because doctors aren't smart, so we need the colors to tell us. And yeah, sorry, you can tell I'm not a DSO fan.
That'll never
So,
leave you. You're like, you guys.
yeah,
Thank you for the
and
color.
and so it just happened to be, I think it was like March, and we're talking about my January numbers, or maybe it was my February numbers, because I had surgery at the end of January.
And
And
were
I
they
did. I
aware of
went
all
back.
this? They knew. They
They
knew.
knew
They were.
everything going on, and I went back to work after 3 days. I took 3 days off, but I couldn't do a full schedule because, if you can imagine what it's like to get hit there, imagine having one removed. Like, I did not feel great most days. Standing was not fun. Trying to walk or run, obviously, was out of the
Yeah.
question. It was kind of a slow kind of shuffle.
Yeah.
So I wasn't seeing a very busy schedule, but I was still seeing patients because I wasn't going to just sit at home and feel sorry for myself. So I went back to work and all that. And I remember they're talking about the numbers, and I was in the red across the board. And they made a comment about it. And then they said, but we know why. I was like, do you though? I was like, do we have to have this conversation?
Yeah.
Because I was never a fan of these metrics anyways, because everything was like, how many patients are you, like, what's the average number of patients you're seeing in a day? What's the cost per, like, how much money is each patient bringing in, and all these things, and things that are probably very great when you want to run a very sound business. And I understand that. And we do run a business, but I think more importantly, we treat patients. And it just felt like we were looking at dollar signs instead of individuals. And I hated that. And so I hated these conversations because we were still outproducing ourselves from the previous year. So we weren't meeting the DSOs goals in every metric, but we were growing pretty substantially.
growing.
I think we had like 5% growth, which is huge, but it didn't meet all their categories.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of just the icing on the cake when we pointed out that my numbers were low, but it's okay because we know why. I was like, no, like, at that point, it was just clear to me. I was like, I got to get out of this system. I can't have a career in this. So that was kind of a big eye opener. And, we're, like I said, we're trying to start a family. We're going through all that. And that, another time, just thank God for my wife, like, she was my rock in all this, and talking to her, like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Like, do I want to do a scratch startup? Like, that's so labor intensive, time consuming. I think I could be successful here. And I was like, I think that's what I want to do, because I don't want to leave this town. We loved Montana. And then started kind of exploring the implications of that. And as it turns out, yes, all my assumptions of my non-compete were right. They are non-enforceable in Montana. The ambiguity in my contract would favor me.
Wow.
But all those things only work in the court of law once you have a judge. The litigation to get there, when this was what I did not think about, can be very time consuming, can go on 2-3 years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And essentially, as I kind of took legal advice, just know that if they want to and they come after you, you're looking at easily $200,000, $300,000 over 2 to 3 years. And some of that could potentially limit what the bank's going to do for you and look at you differently, and could also potentially, until you get a ruling, can affect on like where you're able to open doors and all these things. And I was like, well, that's a nightmare. Even though I felt comfortable that we could win that battle, it's like, do we want to take on that battle? And my non-compete was only a year. So I was like, well, why don't we look elsewhere? I was like, we can go somewhere else, live it out, and come back, and then just and do, start our own practice, make it what we want, and not have to worry about it. So we started looking elsewhere and ended up taking an opportunity down in Arizona.
Okay.
Great doc here, and everything just kind of felt right. And it kind of opened a lot of doors, because he's someone that was, looking for not just an associate, but a true partner, wants someone to come on and help, be a partner in his practice. So it's like, hey, if we love it, we don't have to leave.
Yeah.
And he knows my story. I'm like, are you going to sell to a DSO? And he's like, no. And I was like, can I have that in the contract? And essentially what we got in the contract was that, like, if he sells to a DSO, it's null and void. Like, my non-compete and everything's voided.
Oh, okay.
So like, because he wouldn't say that he won it, which is smart. Like, no one should say they won't.
Yeah.
You never know. And I
Yeah.
get that.
But don't kneecap me in my career in my town and after making a move and changing my life around. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Exactly. So, we're at this point, we'd been trying for about a year to have a child and had no success. And
Mm,
that I've learned isn't that long. Like I've
mhm.
met people with such longer journeys, but I was like,
Yeah.
hey, like that's kind of the criteria when they will start helping you. I was like, let's go see a fertility specialist, try
Mm.
to get these things. My wife was diagnosed with PCOS during that, and like, cause she just had the most irregular
Oh.
cycle, so no baby yet. And we signed with the practice in Arizona, and we're getting ready to leave. And this is July of 2024. Yeah, July 2024. And I'm supposed to have my 4-month scan in August. And I'm like, well, I'm moving. So I called the oncologist, luckily, like another doc, like he's like, I was like, hey, can you do me a solid? Can we do it 2 weeks
Yeah.
earlier just to get
Yeah.
the scan? That way I have, a couple months to find an oncologist where I move to.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, of course, whatever. So we get the scan and all that. 4 hours before leaving, I'm told that I might have a metastasis, that my cancer has recurred and it looks suspicious in my lymph nodes in the retroperitoneum. And yeah, tough. Like right before you move, start a new career, that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, again, as I say, it wasn't the first time life kicked me in the balls. I moved on. And so I got to joke about it because I do get emotional talking about it.
It's
And
okay. Both of those things. It's okay. Yeah.
I was like, well, there's no guarantee. That I talked to the oncologist, and he was a great oncologist. I think he's now retired, but he was practicing in the town in Montana I was in. And he's like, hey, this is still very treatable, still very curable. We repeat the scan in 2 months, make sure that it's definitively a metastasis, that it's not just some rogue lymph node.
Mm.
Um, and then we go from there. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just a rogue lymph node. Like I've had weird things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to Arizona, start practice there. I told the doc right away, like as we were literally driving the U-Haul from Montana to Arizona, and told the doc that I was going to work for, like, hey, just FYI, like I got this news. I don't know what it means, but I just want to be upfront and clear with you so that you know. And he was,
Mm.
super receptive and, encouraging and super great, like to help, like obviously there's, as there's things that you have to do so it's fair for all employees, right? With like health
Totally.
insurance and all that. But like
Yep.
he's like, hey, like we could, within what we can do legally, we'll help get you on the insurance as quick as possible and all that.
Yeah.
And so there was a little bit that was kind of, another eye opener, that as I moved, I lost my health insurance at the end of the month from the DSO. And then I didn't have health insurance with the new place. Again, very, very, very fortunate that I had money saved up so I could pay cash for some things. And, I wasn't
Gosh,
going
in
to
the
sit on
middle of
that. But
treatment.
yeah, so I was, I was trying to establish care and all this stuff. And I started seeing a group in the town that I'm in, and we were getting everything kind of worked up by the time, and they wanted a PET scan and all this with another CT scan. And there was kind of all these like moving parts, and we were trying to get it set up. And I got the CT scan, but we were still waiting on the PET scan. Then finally I got active for insurance. So now we're in like September of 2024. And my insurance wasn't taken by that group. And I'm like, well, that's great. And like just an
No
oversight that I
way.
didn't think about right away, like, but I was very fortunate that I'm close to Phoenix, and the Mayo Clinic takes
I
my
was just going to say,
insurance.
isn't Phoenix famous for cancer
Yeah.
care and research?
Yeah.
And,
They have a lot
okay.
of great, they have Banner
Scottsdale,
Cancer
the Mayo.
and MD
Yeah.
Anderson and the Mayo Clinic. So they got a lot of
Mayo.
great cancer centers there. And I was like, well, to me, it's like the world was speaking to me. I was like, I'm supposed to be there. So I established care at the Mayo Clinic. And again, no, not being paid by them, but the most phenomenal care I've ever had anywhere. And like, it made me reflect internally on how I am as a doctor. Cause it's like from the person that greets you at the door to the person sweeping the floor to the barista making coffees in the coffee shop to the doctors to the nurses to the reception, like everyone, the schedulers, they're phenomenal. Like, so praise to them, because what they're doing it right. So good on
Oh,
them. But got established there, got some repeat scans. And so September, yeah, and found out that unfortunately my cancer did metastasize. And so that was kind of a question mark. Like, what does that mean? What's next? The very next day, my wife had a positive pregnancy test.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, roller coaster.
Huh?
And so it was just, good and bad news all just flowing in. And I think though the pregnancy definitely helped. Like that
Mm.
took both of our minds somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
and for the better and for the good. And I was at the right place. Like I said, the Mayo Clinic was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about surgery, and they set me up with a surgeon. There's something called a retroperitoneal lymph node dissection. And those docs are, you know, monsters. It's crazy what they do, like to just go all the way through your abdomen we have, the major artery that runs down is the descending aorta. And that's where all these lymph nodes are at that are cancerous. And they have
Mm.
to peel them off this artery without nicking it, or else you bleed out. Right.
Oh my
It's not
gosh, man.
guaranteed death, but it's very bad
Uh-huh.
if that starts bleeding. We're talking about this surgery and all that stuff. And they're like, well, it's an option. They're like, there's some things I don't like about it because of this and that. And here's the risk of it. And there's a lot of bad risks with it, especially from a fertility standpoint again.
Mm-hmm.
The other option is chemotherapy, which has a very high success rate, but also has its, side effects,
Yeah.
to say the least. Honestly, I was kind of leaning towards the surgery at one point because it just kind of felt like that's what the world was pushing me towards. But then they got another scan and it looked even larger. And they're like, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
surgery is going to be the best option because surgery only treats the disease that we see. It doesn't treat what we don't see. And chemo goes everywhere. Like, yeah, it's killing you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also killing all the cancer cells.
Mm-hmm.
So I underwent chemotherapy, and I started
So what
that
is this?
in,
We're talking like fall 2024. Oh yeah, you're just about to
so
say.
yeah, it was like November, I think was my start date when I finally started. And it has such a good prognosis because most people that get testicular cancer and then has a metastasis were otherwise young and healthy. So they can just blast you with it, right? Like there's different types of chemotherapeutic agents. There's different ways it's administered and how often. But like I was getting blasted. Like there were some weeks I would have to go, every single day. Some weeks was like Tuesday, Thursday. Some weeks Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But yeah, it was a wild, wild journey. I ended up losing all my hair, no facial hair, no eyebrows, no nothing. Yeah, I'll have to show you a photo. Like
Just
I don't
bald
look
as
like
Ryan from
myself.
the Dennis Money Show.
But yeah, when you lose, but I was like pale, right? And no eyebrows and
Yeah.
no
Well,
facial hair.
same.
And like, so like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you look sick. And like, that was the hard
Mm-hmm.
thing was my whole training. I'd been learning how to identify sick people, right? Like who's too
Oh
sick to
yeah.
operate on? Like
Oh
who do
yeah.
you need to like raise that red flag for? Um, and to look in the mirror and see that person, like that was a
Whoa.
mind battle that I
Whoa.
had going on. And so that was really tough. And meanwhile, the whole time my wife's pregnant, right? Growing a child. And it's our first pregnancy. And it's all supposed to be about her and everything she's going through. And like I was the sick person needing treatment and needing to be taken care of and soup made for and stuff like that. And I was still
Mm.
trying to work when I wasn't getting infusions. But I would
So I
wake
was
up
gonna
at like,
ask how the work was going. Yeah.
yeah, I'd wake up at like 4 a.m., leave the house by like 4:30, get down to the Mayo Clinic around 6:15. They'd hook me up to an IV and I'd be there for 7 hours, and then I'd drive back and, kind of lost the whole day. It's about an hour and a half to
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, depending on traffic
Mm-hmm.
from where I live. On days that I wasn't going in, I would go see patients, and it was really hard. At first,
Mm.
first week, not too bad. But then as time went
Yeah.
on, like, and patients could tell, and we were very open with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'd have to wear a mask a lot and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it's like, hey, like we know COVID's over, and this isn't any political statement. It's just that I have
Yeah.
to protect
I'm
myself because I
sick.
don't have an immune
Yeah.
system, and here's what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And like and stuff like that. And I mean, the community was awesome. Like patients were very
Mm.
understanding and just so grateful that you were still there to help and see
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm.
I remember even one time there was a guy that had a mandible fracture, no insurance to the hospital. And I was going through chemo, and I actually drove back on one of my half-day infusions. So after getting an infusion all morning, drove back and then did a mandible fracture in our clinic to help
Whoa.
this guy. Yeah. And so it was tough, but I think work still gave me purpose and helped me take my mind
Mm.
off things. And like, I
Mm.
don't think I could have just sat at home like that because the days that I didn't go into work, I feel like were actually tougher because you
Yeah.
felt all the, like, I mean, it's an undescribable level of nausea. Like, I've never
Oh,
felt nausea and vomiting like that. It's like the aches and pains, and my cell counts were dropped so low that they were so scared because, like, especially with what I did, they know I'm exposed to people. They were giving me
yeah.
these, they're called Neupogen injections that stimulate your bone marrow to try to get your bone marrow to grow and make more immune system.
Mm,
Just the bone pain, like, it felt like every bone in my body was about to break. Like, it just felt like I was brittle. Like, it hurt so bad when
mm,
they'd give you these bone marrow injections. And yeah, it was a very wild, eye-opening journey to go through, and has given me such a profound, respect for every person that has to go through that. Wouldn't wish it on anybody because it is a
mhm,
wild, wild journey. But I was very,
mhm.
again, grateful and lucky to be at the Mayo Clinic where I had phenomenal care, and everyone did their part, and I was just so lucky. And yeah, we got through treatment that ended up in February. We had a couple complications. The chemo is really harsh on all your bodily systems, and started having some liver issues where they didn't
Yeah.
know what was going to happen because my liver enzymes just kept skyrocketing and going up and up and up. And they're like, well, it could get worse. It could get better. You're like, well, that's not great. But luckily that's resolved. And then, finally, kind of March, April, there's some sprouts up here and there's some growth of the hair. And I'm like, okay, it's coming
Looks
back.
great, actually, man.
Thank you.
It's got
I
a
can't bring
thick
myself
head
to
of
cut
hair.
it. Yeah, I can't
I
cut it
wouldn't
because I'm
either. I
just
would
like,
never.
I didn't
Ne
have it for so
never.
long. And like, yeah, I can't, I don't have the emotional bandwidth yet to do it.
Don't do it.
But yeah, so, and my wife's still pregnant and she like had the most, I can't speak to it because I didn't have to do anything, but like, she'll tell you she had the most, easy pregnancy. She didn't get
Wow.
morning sickness really. Like, she was like maybe
Wow.
a little bit tired, but she's a phenomenal and lover of
Mm,
pickleball. And she was playing
mm.
that up until the end. Like, she's going all over the
Really?
pickleball
Yeah.
court and
Yeah.
loving it. And then uh, we were in April, and she was at 35 weeks gestation, and that's when you start going weekly until baby comes. And she goes in, she has her OB-GYN appointment, and they're like, "How's everything going?" She's like, "Yeah, fine, whatever. Life is normal." And they listen to the baby and the heart sounds and all that, and everything was great. You know, they're like, "You're just gonna keep cruising, and at some point, you have a baby, probably around 39, 40 weeks." And we're like, "Sweet." And so she comes home, she tells me the good news, and we're sitting there. It's a Friday night. We're watching TV, and she just looks at me, and it's just a look I've never seen on her face, and it's kind of terrifying. And she just jolts up and runs away towards the bedroom. And
Yeah.
she was wearing white sweatpants, and I just saw a sea of red. And I was kind of confused at first. And I get up, I'm like, "Is she okay? Like, what's going on?" And then I see going towards our bedroom is just puddles of blood. And yeah. And so, sorry, man. Yeah.
Oh, take your time, man.
I walked into the bathroom, and there's just, I mean, I've rotated on some crazy surgeries with trauma surgery and vascular surgery, and I've seen bloodshed, and my heart just dropped. Like, I did not know what was going on, but I knew something bad was happening. But you can't tell her that, right? You got to be the
No,
rock.
yeah, yeah,
So you
uh-huh.
just try to tell her it's okay, and like, we're gonna go to the hospital. It's gonna be fine. Like, who knows what's going on, but we got this. Got her into my truck, drive her to the hospital, and we're just waiting. The OB-GYN that was on call, they're calling him in to come, evaluate everything, and the nursing staff was great. They were trying to like do some things to help, but then like every time they tried to take a look, it was just too much bleeding and stuff like that. And they're like, we just have to wait for the doctor. And yeah, I won't forget when they put on the monitors and we could hear the heart sounds. Yeah. And you just knew that she still had a heartbeat. So that was good. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah. So
Whoa.
doctors came in, and I mean, there's a whole bunch more to this story, but not all relevant. The essential part of it is they decided emergency C-section. And
Mhm.
so they did the C-section. Kind of funny. The anesthesiologist saw me. He's like, "Do we have a mandible fracture?" Because I just did a case with him like 2 days earlier. And I was like, no, I'm like, I'm not here for as a doctor today, here with my wife. And they did the C-section, and you know, we were a couple weeks early, but baby came out breathing, healthy, and we are parents of a baby girl, and she's 5 months
Fuck.
now. Yeah.
What's her
So
name?
Grace, for obvious reasons.
Grace. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Oh, congrats to
Yeah.
that though.
So, yeah, wild. Yeah. It's hard to tell that story because it just brings back
Mhm.
all the emotions of going through
I
it. And
can't even imagine.
it's weird, our whole time we're trained to be the doctor and to be the one in charge and to direct the situation and to be in a spot where you feel like you have no control
Mm.
and just have to kind of sit back and let another doctor or another surgeon or someone else do the work. That was definitely humbling. Um,
Mm.
but we have a beautiful baby girl, and like, I mean, I could tell you about the year I lived in Central America, and I could tell you stories for, 5 hours straight of all the cool things and the times I've backpacked through Europe. That'd be another couple hours. But there's nothing cooler than being a dad. And I
Mm.
absolutely love it. It's the
Mm.
best part of every day, and when I wake up and she's smiling, and like I said, I ran home to come do this interview, and I saw her, and she looked up at me, and like that look and that smile, and it just makes
There's nothing
everything
better.
worth it. Nothing
No,
better.
there's
And like
nothing
and
better.
yeah. And so it's amazing. And I know you have 3 daughters, right?
I have 4, and I was just gonna
4, okay.
say, as we've been sitting here, my 2 oldest ones in college, I'll just tell you, they've been calling through for different reasons, and, it still makes me just so happy to see a text or a phone call or a FaceTime. It doesn't change. It's different, but it's the same feeling. That's
Well, I'm
really
sure it only gets better. Like I said, she's not even talking, or she doesn't contribute anything. I don't know what she does all day. But, like, I love her more today than I did when I first met her, and I'm like, "How's that
Oh, of
possible?"
course. Of
To what I
course.
felt that first day, but it's like every day it grows, and it's such a
It is.
a cool
Yeah.
thing, and, I just feel very
Yeah.
fortunate that that was in our plans and that life had that in our plans.
Oh.
But
So,
so, yeah.
okay. Well, first of all, there's so much. I mean, first of all, and we're not done here, but thanks for just sharing so much personal, emotional stuff and just being so raw and candid about it. You hear people go through stories like this all the time, and you just think, how do people survive that? How do they get through like one thing after another, after another, after another? And like sitting in the doctor's chair when people are coming in for trauma and their lives are upended and they're scared and worried and out of control, and now you're sitting in the chair. At this point, you're still working, right? You're still working,
Yeah.
and healthy baby girl, I assume healthy mom through all that ordeal.
Yeah, luckily, yeah, mom and baby did phenomenal through the whole thing. Baby came at 10:43 on a Sunday. I went to work at 7 a.m. on Monday. I had patients.
Okay.
So it's like, well, they already took off work to have surgery. They're being asleep and sedated. I was like, I felt bad canceling. So, and
Yeah.
so I went into work because just randomly my parents were in town too. So my wife
Mm,
had people at the hospital. So I went,
okay.
took care of business, and I'm still working today. But yeah, it's kind of been that whole question of what's next, and
Mm,
where do we go from here?
okay. So here's some questions I think this is at the root of really the meaning of, why we work, why we earn money. And everyone has different values and reasons for the things that we do. But if you were to, which I'm sure you do all the time, reflect on at this point in your life, you're still very young. You still have so many things ahead of you. I'm sure you still have question marks about what's going to happen, where things will head, and what to do on certain things. But how do you feel about, let's just say, ask the same question on a couple things. What's the role of work in your life? What
Yeah,
purpose does the role of work or career serve to you now with all this like unwanted perspective? Really?
yeah, it's very much changed over from what I thought it initially was. I always thought work was for a job just to have money, and
Hmm.
yes, work does give us that. But I recently read a book, and I'm sure you have too. It's a very common one. Start with why,
Hmm. Yeah.
and just a great book. But it's made me kind of reflect onto everything I do and why I do it and the experiences that I've had, right?
Mm.
And, I said, like, one of the most humbling things was being in that position. And that, is really my wife that was going through it all. And I was just on the sideline. So I wasn't the patient, but being
Mhm.
what I said, I felt helpless in it all. And it was just terrifying. And luckily, most of the things I do every day aren't that terrifying, but patients are terrified of it, right? Like no one
They
wants to
are.
come see you for an
I
extraction
was
or
gonna
wisdom
say.
teeth implants, but we also
Yep.
do bigger stuff like jaw surgery, orthodontics, TMJ surgery, stuff like that. But it's given me so much appreciation to just be the doctor that puts them at ease, right? I
Mm.
mean, and even something for as routine as wisdom teeth, which is like our bread and butter,
Mm. Mm.
for most individuals, that's their first experience with surgery, right? They're 17, 18, 19. They've never been
Mm.
put to sleep before. They've never had surgery before, and they
Yeah.
are
Uh-huh.
terrified. And,
Yeah.
like to me, we have such a privilege to try to make that the most enjoyable experience for them, right? That you can to just, and even though like not everything's going to go smoothly, right? They might have post-operative pain. They might get a dry socket or have bleeding or whatever, but showing them that doctors do care and that we're there for
Mm.
them and that we're going to do
Mm.
everything we can to make them feel as comfortable as possible,
Mhm.
within our realm. So I think that's kind of been a new perspective of mine.
Okay.
Um, I think too, like I said, going through all that, going back to the DSO, like for a long time, I didn't want to be mad about the company selling to a DSO or
Yeah.
private equity, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
because I'm like, don't fill yourself with bitterness, and I guess that's partly true. But I feel like now, like actually, no, like I'm gonna use that to light my fire. Like that should make me mad. Like I'm not mad at any
Mm.
individual, right? But
Yeah. Uh-huh.
like I said, I know I can deliver better patient care in a more sustainable model and a more patient-centric
Mm.
model in a better setting overall than any DSO can. And I'm going to let that fuel me, like that's my
Love
mission.
that.
Like I like,
Yes.
and for anyone that wants to work for a DSO or as part of a DSO, that's fine. Like you can have your own mission, but that's my mission, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to do it better than any corporation can because I believe that I can and know that I can.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's really started to kind of fuel like what I look at and what I do.
Man. Yeah.
Um, and then, and that's kind of from the personal side, I guess from the professional side. From the personal side, like I said, being a dad is phenomenal. And I think, I came out of residency and I didn't know what to do. And I just thought, okay, I'd start hitting the books. And I started reading about personal finance and reading all these things about like, what do you do? How do you save in a 401k? What is a 401k? What's a
Mhm.
backdoor Roth IRA, right?
Right.
What's the
Yeah.
mega backdoor Roth
Yeah,
IRA,
the
which isn't even an
mega.
IRA, it's like just,
Yeah.
but all these things. And I started listening to podcasts, your guys' podcasts, The White Coat Investor. I started reading all these books and I have probably like 30, on my shelves. I started going to like financial wellness conferences and stuff like that. And learning all about it, and I got really excited about it, right? And I started saving lots of money for those things and just being very money savvy, money smart.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't go out and, the I didn't have a car. The car I bought was a 99 Ford Ranger. It was,
Let's go.
$5,000.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I didn't go buy the Porsche or the Lexus or the Audi. And I was just really money smart. And that was very beneficial because when I've gone through all these health things, I've been very lucky that I haven't had to worry about money and what it was going to cost to pay the bills. Like
Mm.
my heart bleeds for every patient going
Oh,
through all those same things, but then also has a financial worry on the other end
yep.
because I couldn't imagine to add that to the mix. Like it's stressful enough. Like
Uh-huh.
nobody deserves to have that added stress. But I was very fortunate. But I was also maybe a little too obsessed with it. Like I don't know that I was ever in the FIRE campaign, like
Mm.
the
Mhm.
financial
Yeah.
independence, retire early. But
Retire
like you
early. Yep.
hear about it, you hear about it everywhere, and all this stuff. And like I was very sad, like okay, I got to get to these numbers, and like try to
Mm.
always make sure that I'm staying on track. And I was really aimed towards this goal that was 30 years away, right?
Mhm.
And that was so much of my focus. And then life just kind of slapped me and was like, you got to focus on now. I
Mm.
mean, talk
Mhm.
about a theme for a conference like plan for the present. It just hit home so much. And it's like, yes, I still believe that you have to do all the right things and save for retirement. But no one promises that we're going to get there, right? Like
No.
no one says, "Oh, you for sure are going to get to retirement at age 55 or 65 or whenever it is." I don't want to have anything left on the table, right? It doesn't make sense to
Mhm.
die the richest person in the graveyard.
Mhm.
You want to have it set up that if you do leave this world early, that your family's taken care of. But the only thing, I mean, this is just my own personal belief. The only thing I get to take to the grave with me is the experiences I have on
Yep.
this planet, right? So
People
it's
you
like I want to
loved.
go
Yep.
be with them as much as possible and do as many things as I can with them and share that and let them know how much that means to me. Cause that's
Mm.
to me at the end of the day, that's all we get to take. So
Mm.
that's really changed my why and why I go to work. I love what I do and I love that I get to help people, but it also allows me to go do all those fun things with my family. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Man, I love thanks for sharing all that. I love hearing the perspective of what that made you feel as a clinician and a business owner in the healthcare industry. Your experience with DSO and private equity, your experience as a patient, your experience as, a support to a patient, your wife and your daughter. I love how that you're right. Yeah, you don't want to carry anger and bitterness, but you do want to have something fuel you to be better than that system that you saw and that you're a part of. And yeah, I love the personal takeaway too. It's a tough balance. Everyone's trying to strike it in their own way. How do you stay present? How do you enjoy the vacations of today while taking care of your old self that is going to need some money later on too? It's a delicate balance that it's probably walked imperfectly, but it's sounds like you have a lot of really good perspective on that. If you were trying to tell someone or convince someone to maybe hold those same values or have similar perspective without them going through what you've been through, how would you do that, or what would you say to them?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question. Um, it's one of those things that I kind of look at just how much joy and experience can bring you, right? And that experience is going to be different for every individual. Some people will get joy out of going surfing, going camping, going to Disneyland with their family, doing all sorts of things, but really kind of focusing on when you spend your money on experience with the people you love, the feelings and emotions that brings to you, as opposed to when you spend them on a new car, nice clothes, fancy whatever, and kind of seeing how that relates to you and kind of realizing which one means more to you. And I bet 99% of the people are going to say, "Oh yeah, that experience was way better."
Totally. Yeah.
Like it's just, hands down, it seems to top everything.
Mhm.
The only thing I can say is just like, again, nobody promises you tomorrow.
Mm.
And if you think, if someone told you, okay, on Friday, you don't wake up, how would you live the next few days differently? And
Mm.
that's an exaggeration, right? Because no one's going to work the next day,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
got to do that. But like, I mean, think about like the first things that go through your mind. Okay, well, those are called priorities. The first things
Uh,
that just went through your mind, right?
yeah.
So was it? Oh, I'd be with my family. I'd be this. I'd go here. Like, those are things you should be thinking about. Like, okay, well, how can I make those things still priority? But accomplish everything else if I do get to make it to 75 to 85 to
Yeah.
100, and
Yeah.
I'd say it's a delicate balance. And, it's just like the market, right? Like we're never going to know if we had it exactly right. Like, should I have put in my money today or tomorrow? Like you can't time those things. So like,
Yeah.
and it's anyone's best guess. But I'd say if you invest in those things, I'm betting on that you won't be upset at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like we could keep going for hours. There's so many more details I'd love to hear and stories. Maybe we'll do a follow-up. Actually, that'd be really cool is to do a follow-up. But what's next for you, man? Where do you go to next? What are you looking forward to in all this stuff, career life? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, so that's the big question. We're trying to decide what's next, right? We wanted, like I said, we came to Arizona thinking we might live out a non-compete and then go back to Montana. That's completely possible. However, a scratch startup is very time consuming, and there's a lot that goes into that. And I don't know if if I'm ready at this point in my life to commit that much time to
Mm.
work. I know that sounds
Hmm.
terrible. Like I'm a hard
No,
worker
no.
and I love working, but like people talk about, oh yeah, you're coming home late, you're never seeing your kids. And like I wouldn't be following my true self. Like all I want to do is go hold my my daughter, like
Yeah.
right now, like when we hang up,
Yeah.
I'm running upstairs to pick her
Good.
up, like, cause it's
That's
the
so
best
good.
thing in the world.
It's so
Um,
good.
but the other caveat is that you've heard our health concerns, and we want to continue to grow our family. That would be amazing if the world has that in the cards for us. We don't know if my fertility is going to rebound. Chemo destroys
Mm.
your fertility.
Yeah.
So we had to do cryopreservation, so freeze
Mm.
some of my swimmers, and so we'll see. We might need IVF. We might be able to conceive naturally. My wife is now considered high risk pregnancy because of that
Yeah.
bleed.
I'm sure.
And the OB-GYN in the small town that we're in Arizona pretty much said, hey, you can't get pregnant for 2 years or else we won't see you. You got to go down to Phoenix. And so there's a lot of benefit to being near a metropolis like Phoenix, right? And having
Mm-hmm.
world-class care and
Yep.
not just specialist, but the specialized of the specialists right there. But we miss the mountains. We miss that aspect. So we're just trying to figure that out. And I think when I was at the summit, I really came wanting that answer. Like I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do next? What makes the most sense? And over the last couple of months since the summit, I've kind of just realized like I think it's one of those things is, again, I just have to sit back and enjoy the ride. Like we want things to be permanent, like, right? Like I want to be a
I know.
practice,
I
like say,
know.
oh, this is my practice that I built from scratch, or this or that, or this is where I'm going to live the rest of my life. And this is the house that we live in for the rest of our lives. But I think what I'm realizing is for us, that's just not a reality right now. Like there's so many moving pieces, and we just have to accept that life is good. Like it's really good. We have nothing but things to give to the world, and we'll just have to enjoy the ride and kind of see. Have lots of opportunities. That's a blessing. Everywhere wants an oral surgeon, right? So that's very lucky. And for us, my wife works remotely, so she can go anywhere that we want to go. So we're
Mm.
just trying to figure out what makes the most sense and what takes us. But I have a feeling there's going to be more twists and turns. And if we ever do a part two or whatnot down the
Okay.
road, there might be a whole nother story to it.
Yeah.
But
Well, I look forward to it, and I hope, and wish nothing but the best for you, man. I can't thank you enough for going through this. Like I said in the beginning, nobody escapes, not this exact story, but nobody escapes pain throughout their lives. It either gets to us or someone close to us, and it's just a part of it. Again, like I was saying, I was just on calls with clients this morning, hearing the struggles that people go through. Many of it out of our control, stuff we don't choose or want. And it reshapes our perspectives, it reshapes our goals and our values and our priorities. And so, just thanks for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I know for sure people listening can relate, some more than others, I'm sure. And I guarantee it'll be a huge help. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on the Dennis Money Show, telling us. You might actually have the record for longest interview. For sure, you do. You got the record,
oh wow,
longest
yeah,
interview.
I see that ticking away at the top. I'm like, oh man, this is all going to
I
get
love
cut
it. It's
out. They're
long
going to be like, this
form.
guy said nothing.
No way.
Um,
We like it.
But yeah, no, it's been awesome being here. Thanks for having me. A true pleasure. I think you guys are an amazing group. I enjoy listening to
Mm,
you guys every week.
thank you.
Well, multiple times a week. If anyone has a question for me, like I'm very
Okay.
receptive, especially so like I said, going through the fertility stuff and the testicular cancer stuff.
Okay.
It,
Yeah.
it's something that like I felt like I was alone in, and then once you start telling the story, so many
You're
people
not.
have gone through that in both of
Yeah.
those. And so
Okay.
if I can help anyone in any sort of way, they're free to reach out. My email is probably the best way. It's Logan LOGAN .Ganoe GANOE @gmail.com.
Good.
You can reach out to me, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. But yeah, this was awesome. I hope it helps somebody. And my leaving advice would just be I tell that whole story, but I'm able to sit here today and tell you that that whole story was 1,000 times easier because I did all the things that you guys recommend about being, financially smart with your money. And I
Mm,
didn't have to worry about the bills and the financial component. And that within its own is a huge blessing. So I'm just very grateful that for all the help and free education you guys put out there, because
cool.
it really helped make a very stressful thing slightly less stressful.
Man, that is yeah, to take one thing off your plate. I'm glad you well, I mean, you did the work. So, thanks for listening and tuning in all these years. You've listened to a few old episodes, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm sure there's someone out there that would love to reach out and just know that they're not alone in whatever struggles they're going through as well. So Logan, we'll see you in 6 in person at the next summit.
I'll be there.
Okay, yeah, you got a standing invite forever. I'm just gonna go tell the team right now they got standing invite forever. And thank you so much. Best of luck. We'll be in touch. Just can't thank you enough, man. So hope you have a really great week, and thanks for being here with us and sharing your story. And I know this will be really helpful for a lot of people. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a good one. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on another episode of the Dentist Money Show. Take care. Bye.